I don't know about you, but the end of today's gospel passage gave me quite a bit of whiplash. Jesus uses the metaphor of the blossoming fig tree to emphasize the point that there will be signs marking his return. And so, at least at first glance, it seems that the reason he's telling us this is to emphasize the importance of anticipating these events transpiring. But if that is the case, why does he wrap up this lesson by telling us that we will never know the day nor the hour that it is coming? Why should we be looking for these signs if we're never going to know when they're actually coming? And I spent a lot of time pondering this dichotomy this week and was really struggling to come up with any clarity. You know you're in trouble when you're asking your kids for advice on what's going on in a passage. But then I was reminded of an anecdote told by Jeff Cavins in a video from the Bible study that I'm leading. He talked about how when people make the decision to read the Bible, they often do things like go buy a new fancy Bible with a nice cover and perhaps a bookmark with ribbons on it. They will investigate reading plans and other options, and maybe even clean up a corner of the house for a prayerful reading nook where they'll be able to read the Bible well. And when they've completed all of their preparations, and he says this with a grin in his face and a twinkle in his eye, all they have to do is wait for January 1st. And he tells us this story because it's a temptation we all have. Even when we are motivated, these people are motivated to read the Bible, they're making changes in their life to read the Bible, and yet they will still find a way to unnecessarily delay that thing they are motivated to do. And so something about reflecting on that made me think, I'm doing the same thing with this passage. Jesus is not telling us to look into the future for signs of the fig tree. He's telling us to observe what has already happened. The fig tree is already ripe. Jesus is the Messiah. He is the culmination of all of salvation history. And so the message that's really here today is now is the time to act. We are not waiting for some event in the future. We need to roll up our sleeves today. In 2 weeks, we begin the Advent season. And sometimes you will hear people refer to it as a time of waiting. And it's understandable because there are aspects of the theology of it that's not the worst choice of words, but I do think it can mislead us. I think there's a better word, which is to call it a time of preparing. Because really, Advent is a season of action. It is about doing the work that is needed to be ready for the Christmas season. To that end, last Tuesday evening, the liturgy committee met to go over all of the activities this winter, Advent, Christmas, Epiphany, what have you. And I knew going in that I wanted to say something about the importance of Advent. And so I had intended to give them a gentle encouragement about how important it was to emphasize that Advent is different than Christmas. But as I was going home, I realized I really overshot. Instead of a gentle encouragement, if I'm being honest with myself, I gave them a full-throated tongue lashing about how we are letting the secular Christmas traditions obfuscate and interfere with Advent. And I, to be honest, have quite a bit of a guilty conscience. I feel like I should be making some phone calls. But I've comforted myself with acknowledging that there was a reason I let myself get carried away. And even though I shouldn't, there's something important hiding in my passion. In that There is a real danger if we celebrate Christmas too early. There is a time and a season for everything. And of course, that means there is an important time for Christmas to celebrate the birth of Christ. But it also means there is a time and a season for rolling up our sleeves and doing the hard spiritual work of preparing for that. And if we start Christmas too soon, we are prematurely aborting that extremely important work. We have to remember that Advent is not Christmas, just as much as Lent is not Easter. Imagine if this church felt like Easter during Lent. How could we do the important and challenging work of Lent if everything around us said it was Easter? No, we have to wait until Easter to finish that important work. And the same is true of Advent. And so, recognizing I'm risking the same sort of full-throated tongue lashing, I want to urge you, do not get a Christmas tree right after Thanksgiving. It is not time. We need time to have the Advent season. If you feel an insatiable urge to decorate, you have decades of tradition in your family of decorating after Thanksgiving, put that effort into decorating for Advent. Have the most gaudy and outlandish Advent wreath you could imagine. But keep it about Advent till at least the middle of December. Our family uses the lighting of the pink candle during the Advent season as that moment when we can start decorating for Christmas. Because Advent is important. It is a critical season to roll up our sleeves and see how we are not yet prepared. Because as Christ tells us today, the tree of salvation is ripe. Now is the time. We need to get to work. Now is the time to make those changes that will bring Christ's reign to its fulfillment.